Oh, now I'm live. Am I? How's my audio? How we doing? There we go. Yo, chill keyboard warrior. Yeah, my audio. It's. I'm sharing this on, whatever. Is that you, Kenny? I'll be right back though. I got to grab some water. Okay. Kenny, how's my Wait. Oh shit. This is not the right title. How's my resolution, Kenny? I'm getting better internet this week. I'm getting Frontier's 1 gigabyte and gigabit, and I was supposed to wire my internet before tonight, but I forgot, obviously. A little blurry. Yeah, I think the resolution will come in better when I the thing. Oh, okay. So this is not the right description. I'm still figuring this shit out. Glad I started it earlier this time because I wouldn't have figured that out. Okay. Okay. So that should be good. What's the symbol though? Okay. Your kid already asleep? Oh, now I see your comment. I got a few second delay. You commented that right at the perfect time. I still gotta print out. I've been playing that game, Battle Bit or whatever. It's like freaking, it's like blocky Battlefield. It's really fun. I've been playing it with my friends from high school. Why did they increase my credit limit? I didn't ask you to do that. What am I trying to do? It's just the past two. Yeah, it just the past 2 weeks. It's been like a huge thing. Um, Illegitimate Scholar live, June 29th. Here we go. Yeah, dude, it's so fun. It's so well done. It's like mechanically the game works really well. It's not like buggy at all. It's just it's just a simple, like the graphics are obviously what they are, but the environment is super destructible. The maps are cool. Sometimes they're a little bit big, but it supports 127 versus 127, which is wild. So like, that's something they got to work out. Uh, Here we go. Okay. Oh my God, the AP News website is cancer. I should stop using this. Okay. You ready for the most okayest live show? Russia coup. I actually am not talking about the Russia coup tonight. If somebody asks about it, including you, I will talk about it, but I just don't have much to say on it because it's all just such it's just so propagandized. I don't know what to say. And it's not my area of expertise. I know a lot more about China than I do about Russia. Did someone else just hop in? One second. Okay, YouTube. Screen. There we go. Okay. Sick. Man, this 3-monitor setup is really helpful. Okay, I am not quite. I know it's 8. I'll like tell you. I'm sure. Yeah, my a little in the corner. I guess I got to do this. Up a video. I'm sure it's very simple. Someone to explain it to me. I learned everything on YouTube. I got. Why? I'm gonna be getting stuff. Getting a tweet notification that Bog Beef is tweeting about gamers again. And I'm not sure I give a shit right now. Sorry about that. No, I'm going to retweet this. And I'm going to retweet my... world's most okayest works. Okay. Okay. Okay, I guess I'll just have to do it this way. So I did add something new this week where I little Chrome extension, which I should have realized existed before. I can highlight in the thing and it saves it. So I did this. Now. Okay, I'm sorry. I need a couple minutes. Sorry, folks. Just a couple. Just real bad at time management. Getting better. But this is what I'm going to talk about. I just gotta wait when the moment's right. Is my necklace on? Yep. It's my lucky charm. Okay. Sweet. Welcome, everybody. Very cool. I will do this forever. If 3 people watch, I appreciate that. You know, I know it sounds dumb, like, but I'm not making a joke. Like the fact that 3 my dumbass has to say is pretty amazing. And then, you know, maybe 200 people will listen to it not live, and half of them will actually finish the whole freaking hour and a half or 2 hours of whatever me rambling. But speaking of rambling, what you can look out for is I went on Biting the Bullet with Luke and Typo, which some of you probably know, and I talked about China for 2.5 hours. I just ran. I really like doing that, and that's going to be dropped as one of the conversations. I might be coming up with more content here recently, so I might be dropping in 2 weekly episodes. Maybe some extra episodes, or I might at times when I'm going to be not being able to save it. But I'm trying to figure out because I'm trying to like hook up stuff related to anthropology of religion for these upcoming episodes, some conversations that kind of flow with that. I'm going to email some old professors and see if they have anything to say. I'm worried some of them just won't want to talk to me. Not that I have like a big reputation. They'll look at the podcast and see what it is, and I personally know I'll probably be fine with some of them, but like I wouldn't blame them if they didn't want to be involved with somebody who can't advertise on certain places. But regardless, I'm thinking it's not like I say anything that crazy. I don't think I say anything. But I have been rejected for ads on Podcast Addict, I think, and another one. And the first one wasn't very specific. Forget what that one was, but Addict, like I used Podcast Addict for a long time, and he took like $650 and he kept it for like 2 weeks, and then when the ad was about to run, he didn't even say anything to me, and I was pissed. I was pissed both times actually, and I forget that, and that's what I told him in an email, is that I won't forget this, and that I was taking it very personally. Maybe I shouldn't take it personally, but I don't say. His whole thing was some of the concepts that I did were like thought might be offensive. He doesn't have time to go through everything. I totally feel that, but at the same time, go fuck yourself, because YouTube. I need to get the Rumble up, because eventually I'm gonna get kicked off YouTube for something, I'm sure. I don't want to. I want to be here on YouTube. I love YouTube, but the way she goes, prepare for that. Okay, sorry guys. It's 8:06. Thank you for joining me. Seriously, I truly very much appreciate it. I'm sure you that if you're here, because I never shut up, but I really, really do appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a few things today. About the EU. This is an old article up right now. Even though this was a year ago, it's not really a current event. It's not something that happened this week, but this is something that I think should be brought up today for a number of reasons, like the stuff that's going on in Ukraine and some concerns I have there. Did I? Yep, I did. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Next thing we're going to talk about ESG stuff. We're going to look into this dude, Iroquois. This is kind of a feel-good one, I think. We're going to talk about the Starbucks Pride decor type stuff. We're going to talk about the Palestinian Authority and a few things related to that. Oh, that's not really. And then we're going to talk about solitary confinement, which is something that some of you probably are not going to feel the same way as me on that, but that's okay. In Tigray, which is something we spoke about on, I think, show that I did, if you remember that, but that, that's the big deal, and it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. I try to go to other sources here. I like AP News. I tend to get a little bit of a little bit of a wider perspective, and stuff in Ethiopia, people don't really care when Africans are dying, because they just kind of expect it to happen. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about... This is stuff I just found today. And one thing I put on here was France and their issues. The mainstream media does not report on France very much. They don't like to tell us about French stuff going on, because France tends to be really effective. They do some really, really effective in the stop capitalism from working. And I know that sounds like a commie thing to say, but when you live in a country, in a society where hitting people is hitting them in their money, that means getting things done is shutting down capitalism. And that's why the truckers shut down capitalism. That's what they did. They might not have called it that, but it's what they did effectively. So, gosh, I'm really distracted by my own face up there on my third monitor. That's why I keep looking up. Okay. So the EU can no longer on foreign policy, the German chancellor says. So this is which is a intra, or what's the prefix for supra? A supranatural or a supernatural? Supernational, not supernatural. Supranational organization. So this is almost like it's not globalist because it's not the whole globe, but it is. Or especially for the audio, I want to say this is Illegitimate Scholar Live. It's June 29th, 2023, and today I'm going to be going over some of the things I last week and giving my perspective on them and taking whatever questions people have in the comments live on YouTube. This is done every week at 8 p.m. My real best content is the numbers on my podcast feed or on my YouTube, or the episodes on my podcast that are just numbered, nothing else. At the beginning, it's just 0, 5, whatever episode it is. There's no ISC or ISL in front of it. Like those are, right now, those episodes are coming out every 2 weeks. I feel like if you're only going to listen to one thing from me, listen to those. Those are the best, and that's what I'm most proud of. But this is next. I really like everybody that listens. It really means a lot to me. Luke Linnae, I don't know if you're watching the live show right now, but I've been reading a book called Banana because he recommended it, which was awesome. And one of the guys from Biting the Bullet. So, sorry, I have delayed so much, but I started talking about this a little bit. So the EU, European Union. So this is a organization that is above the national level. So the idea of nationalism in the 1800s. Before that, it was kingdoms. There was some republics. I can't get down that rabbit hole right now, but like union as a structure, as a number one, a political entity, but at the same time a cultural entity, is one includes multiple countries in Europe, a lot of different countries in Europe, and with those countries in Europe, the constant battle in the minds of people and also in their ability to project power against others. There's a power struggle between the European Union and then the European Union. So there are, of course, individuals making up these organizations, and they want to expand the power of their organization, especially if people that work in the EU stay in the EU. I'm not sure. I mean, I think there is a little bit of a movement between national governments and government, but the European Union as an entity and the people in it is not only the people that benefit from it in the sense of union government and they directly get a paycheck, but it's like the German chancellor saying the EU can no longer goes on foreign policy. The fact that it's the German chancellor is a very powerful country it's a very powerful country in Europe, and what that is that Germany is to affect change and instill its own will on the rest of the European Union. I sometimes like to call the EU the Fourth Reich, as in the Fourth Empire, the second being the Holy Roman Empire, and then the second being World War I, like Prussia, United Germany, and then the third Germany. So I like to call the EU the Fourth Reich in the sense that German authority over the rest of Europe is disproportionate. Not, I mean, it's proportionate to their own economic and political, but it's not. It is disproportionate in the fact that it wields a lot of authority. So Germany and France, the other largest power, agree, after England being gone, that they want the other smaller countries not to have as much of a say. So this is a little alarming because this organization was founded in 1993. It has its own currency, right? And they have common travel between places, like people often travel to Germany to work, or the Netherlands. One of my Hungarian friends does. One of my Hungarian friends. I have one Hungarian friend. So yeah, Chris. So while originally it was like this political, there's common movement between these places, the European, after 30 years of it being like accepted by the culture, the European Union um, is something more to than even their own national country. Like we often think about nation as being there's plenty of other identities that are important to individuals and um, to cultures. It's not innate that the nation is the most important thing. I find with a lot of young people today, especially people younger than me or about my age, is that in certain countries in Europe, they might view themselves than they do with their own country. And that's sort of inevitable with the types of changes that the EU is making. These are very homogenized. You know, these countries, the language is really the thing, a culture around. Language is really number. But these other things are important as well. And their economies being things. So when they share a currency and they share common movement, people can do business over borders, and people are citizens of the EU as well as their. It starts to have the effect of everything evening out, and you know, countries like Hungary and Poland and the East and the south of Europe, these are there are effects on those places that effects on the places that are better off economically that to be not great. So Moscow's makes unity in Europe ever more urgent and increase to selfish blockades of European decisions by individual member states. In an article published by the Frankfurter Allegheny, whatever. We simply cannot afford national vetoes, for example, in foreign policy, if we want to be heard in a world of competing great powers. So, I mean, like, when he says we there, he's talking about the Union. And we cannot afford national veto from a position of believing and that the European Union is an entity that should act in the European Union, should be making decisions like this, more like we would think of a country. And you know, it's concerning. It's just getting higher and higher to a literal one world government in certain ways. You know, there's positives that come with this, but it's these large states in anything like this, they dominate, and it's at the expense of usually the most people. You know, poor people that for whatever reason are not cared about as much. Really, maybe they're cared about in like a way, but they're not cared about in the sense that they, because they don't have the power to cultural power to exert what they want as a people, they end to fall in line with what the Germans or the French want. And that's, act local, think local, think local. The globe will work itself out. Count your pennies, your dollars will work themselves out. Me out, I mean, ultimately, it's Europe looking. The other side of this is that Europe sees themselves, and they see the United States, and they see China. And compared to the United States and China, individual European countries, they have to work together, or they'll be dominated by the U.S. and China. And other rising powers as well. Okay, so that's. One second, I got dry mouth. Okay. Any questions on that? I hate tonight. Who? We had 3, but I bored them out of here. Sorry, one second. I'm on Twitter. I'm thinking about doing a big Cleveland. Cleveland is what I say when I need some edit. So in the edit, I'm going to take this part out because I'm not saying anything. Okay. Hopefully I'll just get better at doing this. We get the raw edition. Yeah, you do. I'm about to try to start a Patreon. I might and like fill it in as I go. You know, one of those things where to start writing, start putting words on a page, free write. You know, something. Okay. Let's just like turn it on and leave it on to boost my numbers because I truly if you did. Okay, Republican attacks on Cleveland. Republican attacks on ESG aren't stopping companies in red states from going green. Okay. Well, I read this article. And like look, read it. Back in the woods of South Carolina's Low Country, at a factory spread across thousands of acres near the Cooper River, really painting a picture for me here, called Nucor is trying to solve one of the thornier challenges of climate change, making steel with the least greenhouse gas pollution possible. Steel is a building block of modern society. It's in cars and trains and bridges. I am not 4 years old. I know what steel is. Who are you talking to? And producing it is a major driver of global warming, accounting for up to 9% of all carbon dioxide emissions that humans generated in 2020. Recently, the steel industry's customers, including automakers, have been pushing for a greener product. So Nucor is exploring its options. It wants to be the company for low carbon steel. Okay, so we can continue to grow our market share because we have something that differentiates us from our competitors. Okay. I'm gonna read a little bit more into this, and then I'll share my total thoughts. But I want to notice a few things. Notice for one thing that he's talking about how like creating low carbon steel is a business decision. That is a business decision. This is not somebody doing this out of the kindness of their heart. And I mean, I always harp on this. One of my favorite episodes that I've ever done is the it's the corporation episode. Like, corporations are meant to make money, and that's okay, but we should understand as a society that corporations, that's what they do. So we shouldn't believe them when they're telling us, and we should understand that forces that push against the power of like need to exist. There needs to be checks and balances in all things in life. I mean, get too deep into this, but that's kind of the root of Confucianism. Confucianism, I believe, is probably, if not the best philosophy for longevity of a human culture. And I'll explain why in the episode that's coming out on Monday that I had a lot of fun, talked about China for 2.5 hours. But I digress. So notice he's making money by the low carbon steel. And this is about ESG. Okay, so this guy, $200 million from BlackRock because of the investment firm environmental, social, and corporate governance factors. So BlackRock, company in the world, or one of them, and in South Carolina to do this. And then here's what bothers me. On ESG in South Carolina are part of a national campaign by conservative politicians and activists who accuse companies to push a liberal agenda. The backlash tends to financial firms that consider ESG factors. So far, Republican politicians have left alone the companies those firms are investing in, such as Nucor, which are trying to operate sustainably. I mean, they're not. Maybe they are trying to operate more sustainably. Okay. And these financial firms, investment, they're doing it as a method of. These large financial firms make money by controlling corporate large stakes in companies. They're not buying index funds, a few shares of Disney. They're buying like 10, 20, 30, and then they're running it to their own personal benefit. And sometimes like hostile takeovers in the 80s happened where industries were destroyed and people lost their jobs that they didn't need to because some dude in a buttoned up suit and tie who did cocaine and drove a Corvette decided that he could make a cool 10 mil off of selling off the assets of some family business that was dumb enough to go publicly traded. Schizo brands. Okay. So this article is saying they're trying to operate more sustainably, but like one side of it, this feels like a propaganda piece to me. I mean, this is, by the way. Okay, so as conservatives strive to make ESG a wedge in American politics, many industrial companies in the U.S. are working to protect their operations and profits in a hotter, and the Republican-controlled states leading the anti-ESG charge, despite their rhetoric, have benefited from those investments. Nucor says it's spending almost $500 million adding a new production line at its County, South Carolina. The company recently opened a new Kentucky, and it's building plants in Alabama and West Virginia. Okay, so this is the part where this guy really lost me, because this it's so condescending. It's so condescending and so eat bread, peasant. The Republican-controlled states leading the anti-ESG charge, they've benefited. These dirty peasants are the ones benefiting from these large corporations who are going in and making plants there. They should be grateful. They're being given a gift. No, they're getting jobs, okay. But this economics that from, like, this is a left-wing, temporary sense of the word left-wing type of idea here that they're talking about, is talking from the position of like Reaganomics and elitism. This is so like, and this is normal in NPR. This is like most people that read in NPR and like are down with NPR. Not that I'm not, okay, but because of things like this, I like, it bothers me. So this annoys me. So we see that strong ESG for better business. It's at the root of it. It has nothing to do with politics. Yes, BlackRock and other large, these multi-trillion-dollar companies, they view as a way to control these companies. And so these companies will benefit in line with BlackRock. They benefit from getting in line with BlackRock. They'll screw them over if they don't. So it's a successful way of controlling companies. So the idea behind ESG is that investors stand to long term if they know how companies are dealing with risks and opportunities accounted for in traditional financial models. They're trying to understand what companies are sustainable, especially as disruptions from climate change grow. Okay, but the thing is, that is just the most generous understanding of what ESG is that you could possibly have, because it does way more than that. And this is from Investopedia. ESG deals with these things. Not all of these are related to sustainability of the environment. They're a method of control. They really are in a number of ways. And please, there are a bunch of people who have done great things on it. So, publishing a carbon or sustainability report, limits harmful pollutants and chemicals, lower greenhouse gas emissions, uses renewable energy sources, ethical support, that means something, LGBTQ rights and encourages policies to protect against sexual misconduct, pays fair wages, governance, diversity on board of directors, embraces corporate transparency, and someone CEO is the chair of the board. So, I don't know. I don't know. But ESG, to me, these large companies don't do anything if it doesn't. I don't trust it. And whatever. But this article, I look, I'm gonna go into a little bit of who wrote this article. I'm not doing that. Please don't go harass this guy at all. That's not what I'm saying. If you're watching the live show, you can see his name here, but I won't say his name. That's not what this is about. I just want to show you, because this is something that I do often, that I recommend you do with articles and anything like that. Look into the background of journalists, because journalists, like politicians and like professors, they're disproportionately heavily from the upper class, and so the opinion and the worldview and understanding that comes out of the class is inherently disproportionately representative of this subsection of the American population and not of the American population. And there's just so many examples of it that, in a more basic way, when you see any sort of article where it's weird, it feels like propaganda, feels like something's off, it's just a robot wrote it, always just look into the person. You can find easily, generally, and if you can't, then it's really weird, because journalists inherently a network, and so go to LinkedIn or whatever. So I'm on this guy's Mike. Okay, his name's Mike. I won't give you his last. If you want to, please don't harass him or anything. Not that I think any of my listeners would. I want to make that very clear that that's not something I want to promote ever. Okay, so let's see here. Where does college go? Yeah, so he got his BA of Arts in English from Hampton-Sydney College. 7. So I just got the New York Times here. They economic and diversity of student outcomes for every college all the time. Great resource to check a college, and you can student makeup of a college's. And the best part is it starts with the economics. So this is a private college. It is a school where the median family income of a student is $126,900. That's quite a lot, but it's, as far as private colleges go, that I feel like that might be a little bit on the low end. It's obviously very, is I think something like 76,000. So from the top 20% richest American families, 56% of this college's body. So the majority of the students, the average is from the richest fifth of America, and so this guy's here, right? He's at Hampton-Sydney College. What his life was before that. Maybe he went to prep school, maybe he went to a public school, I don't know. But after that, he goes to Columbia University to get his MS in journalism, and he got his master's there. So Columbia, it's a Ivy League school. Work after that, he works. So he gets his MS in journalism in 2012, and he reports at the in North Jersey's Meadowlands. I don't know what that means, but what I'm more interested in is his work for 9 years and 6 months at S&P Global in Arlington, Virginia. So Arlington, Virginia, of course, this is outside of DC. This is like something that people would be like, he's glowing. So like somebody that possibly is a Fed, or at the same time, there is a large industry. In this case, I'm not saying. I'm saying that might point to it in certain situations, but in this case, I mean, there's so much everything. It would make sense that he report out of there. But S&P Global is a kind of company that I forget the history of it, but I looked into the history of it. I didn't find it interesting enough to even save the article, but it is like rooted in old money in the early 20th century, and it's fishy to me, but I wanted to move on. So that's this guy. So ESG, God, I am ranting. Any thoughts? I see 3 people watching. I don't know if you're cares right now. I'm gonna talk about the Haudenosaunee, my favorite. Love the Haudenosaunee. I think I can do sound effects too. Oh, not there though. Oh, up here. Okay. Yeah, I gotta like add in some weird stuff in there. Okay, sorry, that was loud for me. Oh. Okay. Cleveland. Republicans. Yeah, I mean Ivy League elitist, but whatever. People live their lives, they have the understanding of the world that they have. And that's fine. We need to understand, just like we need to understand what corporations are and what they do. What they want to do is make. So, okay. An indigenous lacrosse team reclaims its native identity. So these are the Haudenosaunee. So the Haudenosaunee is another name. It is the actual indigenous name that they would have called themselves. And they are the same people who are called the Iroquois or the Iroquois. But that is a name, that's a French word. It was a French word that comes from slang that was derogatory towards them because when the French went to war with the Haudenosaunee. The Haudenosaunee are important Native American group. They have something peace. I have one of their flags. I have a bunch of flags. This is their flag. It's representative of these 5 nations of the Haudenosaunee culture. And I'm not going to get into that today. It's something that I've talked about in the past. I think I YouTube about it. Or something in my old episodes. But yeah, the Haudenosaunee are very important, and they invented the game of lacrosse, which is a game that is pretty popular in New England, which is where the Haudenosaunee indigenous land is. It's in New England and Canada on the other side. That's just adjacent to New England. So, I'm as somebody who played lacrosse, I think it's pretty cool. But it's common in New York and New England to play lacrosse. So they changed their name from the Iroquois National to the Haudenosaunee Nationals, which I think is great. I think it's cool. I don't think it really makes that much of a name, change the name. But, Rose by any other name is just as sweet. But yeah, they wanted to change the name, so they did it. Haudenosaunee, and I think it's better for everybody to. I've been talking about this a lot recently. To be using terms that are your own terms, not other people describe you, not defining yourself by what other people think. Foreign name, whatever. But the name is more than the name; it's symbolic, and so changing it to the Haudenosaunee is very important. I think it's great, and I think it's great that they have not only, that this game that is, and then just like all these other games, like soccer that was invented in England, like a great gift, the sport spread around the world, and now all these other people. There's an American, the Haudenosaunee Nationals. This is international lacrosse, right? So it's world lacrosse, but they can. Great. I'm sorry. You guys maybe don't care about this one as much. I threw it in here, but I like it. And the Haudenosaunee were being talked about, so I felt like I had to include this. So, yeah. So this guy, Onondaga Chief Oren Lyons, says, our proper name is Haudenosaunee, and that means people of the Longhouse. I I mean, it would be called Algonquin language, Western, but Haudenosaunee language family, I suppose. That people got our proper name, said Onondaga chief, honorary nationals. It's a correction of history, basically. So what he's saying is like, yeah, we used Iroquois back then. Like, I mean, they decided themselves to use the name Iroquois. And yeah, we're changing it. It should have been this the whole time. I guess we didn't think about it too much. We thought about it. We changed it. And this isn't like woke remove the freaking Aunt Jemima off the syrup bottle. It's not that. This is their own symbol. This is their own. They're changing their own thing. I was just talking about this the other night, but I really don't purchase anymore Land O'Lakes. I should start a campaign to get that Native American woman Land O'Lakes box, because the thing with that is that on the Land O'Lakes box to have a Native American woman wearing traditional Native American clothes, but it wasn't like they hired to just draw up some stereotypical crap. No, it was a Native Land O'Lakes prior to their time going to purchase from an indigenous American artist a piece of art that they would use as a representation of their butter. And they commissioned this piece of art from this indigenous artist, and that indigenous artist drew or painted this beautiful, I mean, the box is gorgeous. I love it. I love it. I actually saved one with the woman on it. Boxes are gorgeous, but the woman wearing things that are reminiscent of the culture. I forget what but this specific Native American culture. So the woman is a representation wearing things that are specific to this culture, and then the land is on. So these people got rid of the Indian, and then they're saying that they're the woke good ones. It's like, no, that's offensive. And I read this article, which I should have pulled up, but I just thought about this now, from the descendant of this artist who was like, no, like, why'd you do this? No one even talked to us. And that's kind of the root of it. That's the root of that's the root of this. The root of the frickin' EU thing. They don't actually care about the people doing this stuff for. They don't. The Cleveland Indians, and now it's the Cleveland Guardians, and the frickin' what's it called? The Washington Redskins. There were multiple there's a lot of Native American people that actually like that stuff. And there's plenty of Native Americans who do see it as a problem. And for other people that it's a problem, it's just, you're deciding for them what they're supposed to, and you're viewing a people that are diverse as being one-dimensional and homogenous, and that's very dehumanizing to me. And I'm wokey right now, but I care about this stuff. Well, look, everybody who listens, I care about Native American stuff. I hope I talk about it enough, because I always intend on doing it. Dude, like, this is to me, this is a real correction. Taking ice isn't doing anything, but for these people who have this game that they created and that they shared with the world, and that I love, that had and still has religious and cultural, and they reclaim their name, and they're in the World Cup. They're in the World Lacrosse Championships. In the World Lacrosse Championships, because the World Lacrosse Championships didn't have a spot for them. There were 8. There were spots for 8, but the Irish team backed out. And thank God they did, because good Lord, it's their own freaking game, right? And you're not going to let them in the World Championship? It's offensive. It's like, I think it's because it was an invitational. Look, if they didn't play good enough, whatever, okay, because I love it every time England's not in the World Cup. But, only if they lose. That's why. Like, if they didn't play enough to qualify, whatever. But it was an invitational thing, and it's not cool. But the Irish, the Irish are always... the somebody who's being discriminated against or whatever. Right here, Ireland bows out of the 2020 World Games, so Iroquois nationals can play. I'm always proud about Ireland internationally. Now, I'm not nationally Irish, but I am ethnically Irish, and my mother, who's a leprechaun, would never shut up about saints, so I feel like I can claim it a little bit. Okay. I lost one of you. That's okay. Can't all be winners. Anybody got anything to say? Oh, okay. It's about the indigenous stuff too. So, nah, that's it. Okay, so the U.S. Starbucks workers join in a week-long strike over stores not allowing Pride decor. So, more than 3,000 Starbucks employees in over 150 locations nationwide are expected to go on strike over the next week after the union accused the allowing dozens of stores to decorate for. So Starbucks Workers United, a union representing about 8,000 of the company's workers, said more stores will be joining over the next several days in cities including Chicago, Philadelphia, and San Antonio, in what longest and biggest strike in the union's history. So like, look, I don't really know what's going on here. I've heard different things. I've read other articles, but I want to get to the point that we understand that the Starbucks workers, it's like they're, if this is to be taken at face value, which I don't think it is, but I think there's an element of this, is that like these platitudes that have been given to people in place of real change and real better working conditions while like inflation goes crazy and people's real buying power has gone down for decades and the middle class just dies, is they've been convinced to the point that the union is demanding this. You went through the trouble of making a union and you want to, and you want to, that's what you want to draw the hard line at, is putting up pride flags. But I think what's really going on here is there were certain situations where employees were given paid time. That is what I read somewhere. I can't confirm that. Maybe someone can. They were given paid time in the past to decorate, and it was some easier work that like was kind of expected by them, which I totally fair. That it's kind of a part of their labor contract to not get this like seemingly a seasonal bonus type thing. That's part of their employment. And obviously, what I would like to see happen is it would be great if they could fight for slightly better working conditions, and have some of these as demands, but then obviously give those ones up in order for some more substantive things to actually improve workers and their workplace. But yeah, that's it. Sorry. Um, okay. Okay. So this is just upsetting, but can the Palestinian Authority protect Palestinians from settlers? So this is actually I'm going to go to this one first. So the Palestinian killed as Israeli settlers at the village, and I can't get too in depth in this, and I don't know how much you guys know about this, but residents of Termis, say 400 settlers. These would be Israeli Jewish settlers. Marched down the village's main cars, homes, and trees. So these settlers represent a extreme right wing wing in Israel. There's also there's another side of this that is in Israel, this type of thing. But this particular political group, these are people who really, really believe in Zionism, and they view any land that Palestinians are living on, in a lot of cases, as land that they should have. So there are cases happening right now, legal, where they are, where Palestinians, Muslims are being forced out of their homes by some of these settlers. And what's really worrying, I've seen certain videos where some of these settlers are actually like, they're Americans, they're Jewish Americans, and like, it's very sad to see like my own countrymen doing something like that. Like in one video I've seen that I don't have pulled up, but there's like a guy with like a New Jersey who's just like in a Muslim woman's house telling her that like it's his now, and she's like, get out, and he's like, what, someone else is going to do it. And I mean, I guess he's kind of got a point, but that's because this settler population, this settler wing in Israel has so much power, and in the government, and of course, like there are plenty of more mild, more what's the word, moderate, and even more left-wing Israelis who don't agree with these types of things. But a Palestinian has been shot dead in a West Bank village that was attacked by settlers a day after Hamas gunmen killed 4 Israelis as violence ramps up in the occupation. Hamas, this is a militant group in, these are Palestinians, and they killed 4 Israelis, and that's awful as well. I mean, it's terrible. And there's sides, and both sides, like the Israeli side will say that terrorists, these people are terrorists, and then the Palestinian side is like, look at what the settlers are doing. But you know, it's innocent people often that are dying, unfortunately. And look, Palestinian residents and human rights groups have long complained about Israel's inability or refusal to halt settler attacks. So that's kind of where this violence comes from, is that these settler attacks at various times. Right now it's happening in response to this killing of these Israeli civilians. But what often happens, and this is really often the argument that I see, which is not an argument without merit, the Israelis, if the Palestinians could, if the Hamas, the militant wing could, they would completely. And Israel doesn't want to do that. And look, I see that argument. But the fact is that Israel has much more power reasons than Palestine, and there is evidence that Israel meddles in Palestine in order to continue to make this the case. So while there might be more violence in the other direction from Palestinians, these groups like Hamas towards Israel, there's also that Israel is much of doing violence against Palestinians, and they're pretty. They kill a lot more of them because they attack with. And that's not only, you know, settlers like this that are working maybe with the implicit support of the government because they're not stopped, but it's the military. It's the actual military. And it's, you know, it's terrible. And a lot of these people, Palestinian guy, he just gets killed. He's working. He just happened to be there. I don't know how he got killed. I don't know the circumstances. It's when anything like this is happening, it's often innocent people that are just getting killed. And like those 4 Israelis, I don't know if those 4 Israelis were connected to something. They might have been, but often they're not. In a lot of cases, it's just random people that are victims of this. But yeah. So can the Palestinian Authority protect Palestinians from settlers? And what I want to talk about with this is the idea of like a right to defend themselves, I guess. So like this guy, either arm us or protect us, fervently told Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shataya, whatever. Sorry, in the village of Termis Aya in the West Bank, hours after hundreds of Israeli settlers carried out a vicious attack there last week. So, I mean, the Israeli settlers, they come in, everything, and the government doesn't do anything, and they have no recourse. And, like, just regardless of how you feel about this situation, like, people at the receiving end of this, inevitably somebody is going to react violently because violence is being done to them, and sometimes that can be an amplification of violence, and it can become even more violent, or it can be more violent. Like maybe somebody was beaten, and the next time they're stabbed, and the next time they're shot and killed. So in a video that went viral, his home was among 30 houses and 60 cars torched and held the Palestinian Authority responsible for failing to protect Palestinians. So the Palestinian Authority doesn't protect when things like this happen. I don't know why that's being why they're not protecting it. But that in a situation where they did stop it, maybe that could provoke a larger Israeli military response. And like the argument I hear a lot where people are talking about, that the Palestinians in the reverse would destroy the Israelis. Um, the Israelis, I think, are doing somewhat of a slow destruction of Palestinians. Okay. But what I want to get into with this is Cleveland. Ugh. So settler attacks spiked in the backdrop of a real armed resistance to decades-long Israeli military occupation, which triggered deadly Israeli army raids. So yeah, it's exactly what I said. If I had just read that, I would have realized that. So yeah, I mean it's awful because it's like no one can do anything. And look, I'm not saying that the Israeli people are not blame here, but I just wish that the Palestinian perspective was stronger. Like to the point where a two-state solution would be possible. They won't go back to the old borders now, so it'll just keep on taking more Palestinian lands, and more generations of Palestinians will be born into almost stateless conditions in not concentration camps. I mean, essentially concentration camps by a certain definition, but refugee camps. Yeah. Anybody got any thoughts before I talk about solitary confinement? I've taken a very left-wing approach here. So one thing that kind of I don't talk about too much because I usually deal with cultural stuff is that I'm actually left on a number of things. I'm very socially conservative, but I tend to I tend to lean for economic stuff a little bit towards the left, with certain understandings made of from the right wing that would do it. I mean, in a certain way, it's like I could say I'm a nationalist socialist, but I'm obviously not a Nazi. But I am a nationalist. I mean, less so than I used to be. I'm rambling. I'm not a Nazi, but I am a nationalist and somewhat of a socialist by certain definitions of the two. And I guess when I say a nationalist, I'm thinking more about I'm an isolationist, and I'm someone who really thinks that we should care about nationalism. It's okay not to be a diehard side and be open to things. Hell yeah, brother. You're totally right. Thank you. I'm not like talking about stuff that my audience like doesn't want to hear. But yeah, so speaking of that, I'm gonna complain about and that we need prison reform in this country a lot. And just before we go into this, I want to start by saying that I'm not necessarily a Buddhist, influenced by a Buddhist monk by the name of Thich Nhat Hanh, and he takes a extreme view of understanding the actions of other people and the way that they got to. I think that in American culture, very often we, not many people in America care about prisoners, about people that have committed crimes and are in jail or prison. But I think that you can judge a society by how it treats its most vulnerable people, and that includes prisoners. And I terrible things, but a lot of these people have done terrible things. Some of them haven't done anything. Are on a technicality. Some of them are in there for longer reasons for the same crime. You don't know it. It's golden rule type stuff. You don't know how other people's lives went. I mean, the prison population is associated with a number of mental health problems, and including being victims of various types of abuse, including sexual. So I just people have action. They take actions and are punished for those actions. And I'm not saying I want like these crazy Norwegian, but I just think that the U.S. based on where we are in 2023 and the idea that, you know, people maybe they need to pay back society for their, with the rates of recidivism that we have, and the fact that prisoners don't really have a way out after jail, after prison. I you know, I just I think they need better, and in a way that addresses recidivism. So we're going to talk about this. So solitary confinement. I will say off the back that I am against, or I think that the use of solitary confinement should be heavily regulated in the sense, much more than it is now. And I think that its use should be banned in juveniles outright today. And I think that its use with adults needs to be governed under very, very specific rules. And that's because of a number of reasons. But we're going to go into this now. Quinetta Harris, I hope that's correct. Quinetta Harris entered solitary confinement in 2015. This is an article from 2 days ago. She knew it would be much harder to keep in touch with her family. She was permitted one 5-minute phone call every 90 days. I don't know the circumstances of that 5-minute phone call every 90 days. I don't know, but that's inhumane already. That's crazy. I can't even because she doesn't live with my mom, who basically has to give me a super quick rundown of everything. I'm already isolated from my community. The prison sentence should be the punishment. I shouldn't be forced to watch people descend into madness back here. So I'm already isolated from my community. The prison sentence should be the punishment. I agree with her. You are already being in prison all difficult. And like I said, I'm not looking like Norwegian prisons things. Maybe that's a little bit too far, but a little bit back from that, where people are being treated with basic dignity, is the only way that we have, like, into the future, a society that can rehabilitate people, which is what we need. Because you're doing a disservice to society if you're not allowing people to be rehabilitated into it. Victims, criminals, people that commit crimes have victims, and like those victims have crimes committed against them. So it's better for us are rehabilitated in a way where they are treated with dignity, they are treated like humans, and they are allowed to come back into society. And of course, there are certain people who you cannot rehabilitate. Okay, like Jeffrey Dahmer, you keep that guy. Okay, but like 85%, we can argue about the rate, but let's not pretend that everybody who ever goes to prison is unable to be saved. And I think that the majority of would be okay under certain circumstances after prison. So Quinetta Harris, I mean, it's Jesus, man. Forced to watch people descend into madness. Look, humans, Homo sapiens, we are social creatures. These people are in prison or jail. They're with violent criminals, and the worst thing that you can do is make them be. But I mean, it's true. Humans need other human interaction. So she's she's one of more than 120,000 on any given night in the United States. Far eclipses previous estimates because it includes data about inmates in both jails and prisons. Okay. So yeah, jails, prisons are for felonies over 1 year. So there's federal and state prisons. Prison's the real deal. Jail can be very violent and dangerous as well if you're in a certain place. But it's also, you know, if someone gets a DUI, they can end up in jail, you know. Of solitary confinement in our prisons and jails is a crisis. Director of Solitary Watch, an organization dedicated to raising awareness about the practice. I don't know who that is, but the United Nations has confirmed it's torture taking place on U.S. soil. I agree with them. I think that solitary confinement is torture. I think that, like, certain people need to be in solitary confinement because they are violent and need to be kept away from other people, especially people in prison than the people out, because there are a lot of people who have killed people. But there are ways to do solitary confinement where they're being safe, where they're not in that motherfucker for 23 hours a day for years. That's insane. That's insane. You can't do that. And people need to get sunlight. They need to interact with other people. You can't do that to people. Maybe you shouldn't. It's considered a violation of human rights for more than 15 days in solitary confinement, and we're locking up people here for 20 or 30 years. I mean, that's a nightmare. It is a nightmare. I don't even want to think about that. But there are people in this country who that's their experience in life. I don't know why this woman has been in confinement since 2015, but like, oh my. I mean, I'm not even going to Google her and look up her crime because I don't think it matters. And maybe when you look up someone's crime, you're like, oh, this person did this terrible thing. I don't care what happens to them. And like, look, there's an argument to be made there. But at the same time, man, like, leaving someone in solitary confinement is for that long, 30 days, whatever, I guess. But like, just kill them. Like, that's terrible. Like, what is your? I'm only been alive for 28 years. I cannot imagine what 30 years of that would be. I could survive that, no matter what you were before that. If you survived that, you're either the Buddha or you're like that guy from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Dennis. People who have a psychotic condition like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or PTSD. Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, look, and those are going to be disproportionately the people who are in solitary confinement. I mean, come on, dude. Okay, look, I've harped on this. 15 years in isolation. Same facility as death row. Inmates awaiting execution are all solitary confinement. You're on death row and you're in solitary confinement. Bro, just shoot them in the head. And I'm not saying that because, like, I don't believe in the death penalty, personally. But, and that's not, I'm not going to go into that today. But I just don't, it's a libertarian thing. Oh, God, dude. Being on death row and you're on, like, I would want to be killed if I was on death row. Yeah, so, I mean, it comes from violence, right? Like, there's violence happening. This is the way that they deal with problems in the prison. They put people in solitary when they're violent because they don't have the resources to do anything better. And it would cost more to do something else. But, like, dude, you gotta, like, fund them better in prison. Like, we gotta figure this out because it is not working. God, and once again, before I move on, I will bring up that there is a huge association between Cleveland. There is a huge association between being a child who grows up in a one-parent household and going to prison. It's actually larger than the difference between white people and black people. So, a black man who grows up with a father and a mother, a black man who grows up with a father and a mother, even though black people in general are more likely to go to prison than white people in America, but a black man who grows up without a father and a mother is less likely to go to prison than a white man who grows up in a single parent household. So, like, a lot of this is coming out of that. And population level, once you get down to the nitty gritty and someone's committed a crime, it's a different thing. But that's what I do. I talk about things from the big picture. And when I notice a event like that, where the people committing crimes are heavily disproportionately from single parent households, you got to blame people less. And then you look at the evidence of schizophrenia, and you look at the evidence of, or the prevalence in these populations of schizophrenia, and you look at the prevalence of foster kids, and you look at the prevalence of victims of sexual and physical abuse. And it's like, I was very privileged. I had problems growing up, but I didn't have problems like that. Very privileged, not because I'm white. I mean, I am privileged because I'm white, sure. Like, I do. More importantly, I'm a New England white. I'm a pedigreed white, like upper middle class, okay? I'm way more privileged than most other white Americans in that sense. That's why I believe in white privilege, but I don't, when people talk about white privilege, they're generally talking about, oh my God, white privilege. And then they're like, Indian, so you're a person of color, but really they're like a high caste who was like the upper class in India, and they had servants who were like darker than them, and they like spit on them. And then they come to America, and they're like, "Oh my God, we're oppressed." And her dad's like a doctor, and they make like $400,000 a year. And then white girls are like, "Oh my God, my friend is a person of color. Oh my God, I'm so ethnic and diverse." And they're like discriminated against. And like, can you tell me what it was like growing up? Where like, did you have beds? Like, I'm from Detroit. What do you mean? Okay, but okay. Hunger. Sorry. Give me a second. I need some water. Yeah, don't be a criminal. What are you saying? It's their fault? Water. It was water. Okay. Okay. So, hunger kills hundreds after US and UN pause food aid to Ethiopia's Tigray region. And I'm just sharing this. This is just unfortunate. I'm sharing it because we don't talk about Africa a whole lot. But in Nairobi, Kenya, hunger has killed at least 700 people in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region in recent weeks after the United States and the United Nations paused food aid, local officials and researchers say. And like, yeah, they were giving food aid, and then the food aid wasn't going where it was supposed to, so they just cut food aid. But now people are starving to death. So that sucks. The situation is very difficult. Many people are dying. So this figure includes 350 hunger deaths in the northwest zone of Tigray, which was this fighting the civil war. They were rebelling against the government, which hosts thousands of people displaced by a 2-year conflict in the region that ended in November. In mid, U.S. aid officials found enough food aid for 134,000 people for sale in a local, market in Shire. So, yeah, so the number of children admitted to hospitals in Tigray for malnutrition has rose by 196% between April 2022 and April 2023. The recent war left 5.4 million out of 6 million people in Tigray reliant on food aid. So I don't, terms of distribution that they have are clearly not good enough, and they're getting into the hands of other people. But I don't understand. It's possible that they're trying to avoid certain groups that are continuing. I mean, this is the best view of it, that there are certain groups that are continuing to commit violence, and they're being funded in part by getting this food aid and then selling it. And so they want to cut that off so that they can cut the problem off. But there's children dying because of this, and I don't know why that. Whatever. I can't make heads or tails of it, but this is happening, and I'm bringing it up because we don't talk about it a lot. Okay, so this thing. We're coming for your chance. I can't play the video because I would have to blur it because there's a lot of there's things out, genitalia and breasts, everything in the video, but you can look it up if you'd like. There are chants of "we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children," and I'm bringing this up for which I will get into. So organizers say the NYC drag march is meant to be lighthearted and to poke fun at LGBTQ sentiment. So they're saying, oops, did I get my? Okay, so a short video circulated and an unidentified person. This is why I shared this as well. Look, if you read the video, there's a bunch of people chanting, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children," which is a bad look. I don't know if they mean it literally, but I think it's weird that you say it anyway, even if it's a joke. It's a weird thing to say. It's a really weird thing to say. And I'm also not not all LGBTQ people. I mean, because this is insane, and I know plenty of people that are LGBTQIA plus whatever, and they do not support this crazy nonsense. This is a extreme of a minority of the population. So making that clear, now I'm going to crap all over this article and everything else. Okay, so over the weekend, a short video circulated widely on social media of an unidentified person at a New York City march during Pride festivities saying, an unidentified person. There was a bunch of different people saying this. There's a bunch. Okay, so it wasn't. You can watch the clip. It's linked right here. You can find it easily. It was a bunch of different people. You heard male and female voices. Sorry, I'm not assuming anybody's gender here. Okay, so in the 21-second clip circulated by a web streamer channel, they tell you that to discredit it in your mind because, oh, it's distributed by that, so it must not matter. Dozens of people march in the streets are clearly heard chanting, "We're here, we're queer, we're not going shopping." I heard people say that, but I mostly heard multiple people, at least 4 or 5, that I could see their voices moving with the words. This was Timcast got. Good job, guys. But they're saying, "We're here, we're queer, we're coming for your children." But I don't know why. This article links the clip, and I can't play it. And he's claiming it's not true. I mean, this reminds me of the "Let's Go Brandon" thing. The person was, the announcer was, or the interviewer was thinking that it was like, that they were, or trying to pretend that they were saying "Let's Go Brandon" when they were saying "F Joe Biden." Yeah. So to conservative lawmakers, the video confirmed the allegations they've led in years. The LGBT community is grooming children. Look, certain and certain LGBTQ people are grooming children. It's happening. It's a problem. It's not wrong to say it. And this is happening in schools, churches, camps. It's happening in a bunch of different places. And it's a problem. Pedophiles are a problem in this country. Can we admit that? There was a whole guy. He had an island. Crazy, okay? And it happens in a lot of different ways as well. It happens a lot more places than just the Catholic Church. Okay. But to Brian Griffin, that's a hilarious name, Brian Griffin, the dog from Family Guy, the original drag march, if that's the worst they've heard, it's only because he wasn't there this year. Griffin said he chanted obscene things in the past like "kill, kill, kill, we're coming." Can you say that without getting arrested? Could I say that? Is it just allowed because it's at a pride parade? That's not, that would freak me out, and I'm pretty about like Ted Kaczynski and stuff. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't talk about we're the mayor while you're marching. That's scary, dude. I didn't read that in here before. That's legitimately weird. And joked about pubic hair and sex toys during marches. Okay. Church regularly sing "God is a lesbian." Why would God? Whatever. It's all just words. It's all presented to fulfill their worst stereotypes of us. Okay, so put it in a comedy skit. Don't march down the street doing it. Maybe it is all just this really, okay, but if it really is just satire, and it's known to be satire, but I don't think it is. I think this is just him having this bullshit take. Why would you want to children? Why would you want to do that? I don't like this. I don't like it at all. Ugh. Okay, and this is Huckleberry Ken, who performs in drag as Sister Lodi Doll. Look, okay, so that's one that mocks the Catholic nuns. Like, I don't mind people doing drag, but that's cultural appropriation in a way that is not okay. I don't like that. I'm done pretending it's acceptable for people to do whatever, and dressing up in nun outfits, in a mockery of nun outfits, is offensive to my culture, and I'm saying that literally. I'm offended, and I'm offended. I don't necessarily mean that you shouldn't be allowed to do that, but I'm not okay with people accepting that as something that's okay. I need that to be condemned. And I have a hard time with anybody who wouldn't condemn that. Friends that wouldn't, but they would be polite enough to me to understand. They respect that because it's just not cool. But okay, moving on. Okay, so this is something that happened today, and so I had to talk about. You seen that choir in Cali singing the same stuff? Yeah, I mean it's bizarre, man. It's like, look, I have a lot of friends that QIA whatever. I have a bunch. I mean seriously a bunch. It's not like I got one queer friend and it's whatever. I got a bunch of them. And they don't think this way. I mean, they have different opinions than me, but it's not this stuff. Like it makes the movement, it makes the community look poorly. It makes it bad. So, why would you want to do that? You're presenting it in a poor light. But whatever. Supreme Court reject action programs at Harvard and UNC. Okay, so the Supreme Court on Thursday rejected affirmative action at colleges and universities around the nation, declaring that the race programs at Harvard and the University of North Carolina were unlawful and sharply curtailing a policy that had long been a pillar of higher education. So they're getting rid of the racial affirmative. Okay, so it's a 6-3 decision. And this is happening. People feel different ways about it. I don't want to talk about it too much, but it's number one, it's not actually really going to do much. They're going to find a way about it. But something I was listening to Aaron Mac. He said about this was like, good. Now it's like in law. Now it's been shown that this is the law, and then they're going to be shown to be disobeying the law. These large institutions, they're going to be very straightforward, disobeying like a now constitutional degree from the supreme law of the land, the judicial branch, and not respecting that. And they're not in the legislative branch, the other ends of the judicial branch that should be enforcing something. Not going to be enforcing it, and that's going to be shown even more obviously than it has. The institutions in America, public institutions and private institutions, ones of the government, of big business and society, they're losing legitimacy every day, and they have for a long time. And there are statistics on that I've shared before, but I don't have them ready today. So AOC is ridiculed. This is Fox News. AOC was ridiculed for viral take on legacy admissions following Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling. AOC said the SCOTUS should have abolished legacy admissions despite there not being subject before the court. Okay, she's facing criticism for this. Okay, if SCOTUS was serious about color blindness claims, they would have abolished legacy admissions, aka affirmative action, for the privileged. 70% of Harvard's legacy applicants are white. SCOTUS didn't touch that, which would have impacted them and their patrons. So the news take, which is a weird take, is that she's being on the fact that she's being mocked because she said that SCOTUS should concentrate on this other thing. But like, I don't think she concentrate on this other thing. Look, I'm not the biggest fan of AOC. I think she's right here, but like, I think it's telling that Fox News, just like I thought it was telling before, but that they're appealing to, like, they're just like, oh, look how dumb she is. Look how dumb she is. But the subtext of that is AOC is actually, with what she's saying, she is challenging the real power. Because look, the college, yeah, they put all these black applicants in. They put black and Hispanic applicants in, and they, even though they're very bad at a population level, people that are black and Hispanic that are applying to these schools, they're getting in, their grades are nowhere near as good as the Asians, and to a lesser extent the whites. So they're getting in with much worse scores. And there should be other factors in just grades, but it's pretty profound. But that doesn't really matter. What really matters is the fact that the true well, okay, it matters, but what matters to me more and what matters to AOC more is AOC, who often serves the Democratic establishment and the Republicrats, whatever. Right now, she's challenging the real social power. She's challenging legacy applications, and that is what these people want. The people that are in charge of applications don't want. They don't mind letting in some blacks and Hispanics. Number one, they're disproportionately letting in Caribbean and Kenyan and their children and grandchildren, but and African Americans, those descended from American slaves, are underrepresented versus their population. So like the real thing is that they're they're keeping the elite. They're keeping blue bloods because a lot of these people that are descendants, these black people, and ask any of your black friends, ask any of your black friends that grew up in somewhat of a black area. There are major issues between the African and the African American community. So anthropological term referring to the population, the ethnicity kind of the population that descends from freed American slaves, which has admixture of white population through interbreeding and also through some sexual exploitation. Um, that is the African American population. The other population is more recent immigrants who are generally upper class Africans or upper class black people from the Caribbean. And these people are disproportionately those in power. People like Barack Obama, he's half white. He's half white through his mother, half black, but that black is not African American. That is Kenyan black, and I assume upper class. Same thing with Kamala Harris. Her father or grandfather, Jamaican. I think she's part something else as well. But oh yeah, a high caste Indian, right? Or is that someone else? Regardless, Kamala Harris descended from a slave owner, partly because like, and that makes her even in Jamaica in the like they were well off, whatever, upper class Americans. Okay. So like these people that are in these upper elite colleges, they don't care if they let in a few elite blacks, Hispanics. They're letting in when they're letting in Hispanics. It's like, look, Kenny, Doug Dimmadome in the comments. He is a white Hispanic. Okay, he's Mexican, but he is very white, very. And what generally happens with Hispanics in America is that disproportionately, like the blacks that are going to these elite colleges, those are disproportionately the these populations from the Caribbean and from Africa, from more recent immigrations. The that get into elite colleges are more disproportionately more European. These are the whiter Hispanics that are often in a lot of different. I mean, it depends on the country, but a lot of these different countries had the encomienda system, which was a racial caste hierarchy system where the highest was whites born in the peninsula in Spain or in then coming to the New World, they are Peninsulares, and then a step below that is Castillos or something, and those are pure whites but born in the New World, and then below them is a hierarchy of with indigenous people, and then below that black people. So the Hispanics that are getting into elite colleges are disproportionately from this elite. So I mean the look, I'll just do one more thing to show this. And in the case of whites, it's mostly rich whites. I mean, if you're not a rich, good luck. Good freaking luck. You're not getting in. And that's the way. And they say that they're addressing all of these historical indemnities, but once you look into the numbers more, they're not. And I did an episode on this. It's one of my main episodes. Okay, I'm gonna Google New York Times, Harvard demographics. I think that'll make it come in. Okay. Harvard This is what we're looking at. 168,000 median family income. From the top 20% is 60 of their school population. So 67% of their school population. From the poorest 1/5 of the population, it's 4.5%. Look, and these are, if you're a white, if you're one of the whites, you better be from this population. If you're a white and you're not in those, they don't care about the income that much. I think they care about it a little bit, but like you better be extraordinarily, because they're filling up those white positions with the legacy spots, the elites that are retaining their position through allowing their children to get in. Right. Okay. So let's see. Back up. I'm going to do Yale too. Let's give you. Yeah, and Yale's even worse. It's weird. And I mean, they're even more, and they have even less from the bottom 20%. Let's try one more. Anybody have a college they want me to check? Any college, actually. Give me a college in the comments. Columbia, because that was the one earlier. Yeah, I mean, look at this, man. 5%. It could be any one of them. It could be any one of them. It's all the same. Okay, so Brown has the richest kids at it. And that's amongst the Ivy Leagues. Ivy League. Let me show UConn, my alma mater. Because it's even, UConn is a state college. It's a good state college. Anybody want me to look up a school, let me know in the comments. Look, median family income, $120,000 a year. I mean, this is a state college, folks. And like in Connecticut, the average family income is slightly higher than in other states, but it's still like 70. It's not this. And look, man, I mean, it's the share of students from the top 20%, it's 55%. Even at this state school, over 55%. It's wild. Yeah. I'm gonna check UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley, these motherfuckers. Okay, so that's a little bit the same as UConn, but it's California. They have. So yeah, look at this. Berkeley is from the top 20%, more than 50%, dude. Crazy. It's so, but this is the type of thing that will be shouted down because that's the real authority. They'll let in a few black, a few Hispanic. They'll let in a few of the poor whites, a few, very few, but they will in all of the in the once you break down the populations, they tell you that they're talking about, that they tell you that they're trying to. You find that it's not really the population that they're letting in is just these people that perform to the in the same way. I mean, in a certain way, I think it's more racist because they're forcing and anybody that's like not Rice University. You want me to look up Rice University? Okay. Yeah, look. Damn. That's a lot, man. 100 median family income 160,000. 64% come from the top 20%. I mean, look, the college are rich a lot of the times. I mean, and these are good schools I'm showing. UConn is a pretty good state school. UC Berkeley is considered an even better one. Yeah, dude, 65%. Wow. Absolutely wild. Other elite colleges. Okay. All right. So, like, I agree with her take here. Okay. 70% of Harvard's legacy applicants are whites. The other 30% are not white. Of course, because you got to bring in the race. You got to talk about the race. And I think she legitimately cares. But she's kind of an example. I mean, look, she's an example of one of these white Hispanics. Like, she is. I mean, look, I assume she doesn't consider herself white. But, like, look, she's Puerto Rican. A lot of Puerto Ricans are white. And, like, her skin is fair. Look. If she was in Spain working at a bar, I would think she was fully 100%. Sorry, like I get it. It's her personal identity, whatever. But it means not Hispanic, and Hispanic doesn't mean not white. But look at her. She's a representative. Good for her. She's gorgeous too. I'm a fan. Okay. But they all look. Fox News is not they're not populist. They're owned by big media people, and they don't want people questioning the fact. They want people to look at this and think AOC is dumb because the Supreme Court doesn't deal with this, and they don't. The fact that, hey, maybe she did mean, maybe she's that dumb. Obviously, I don't think she is. That would be really dumb. She's just using it to talk about this related thing, and it's the right thing to. But no one wants to talk about it, and they want to bring it up only to ridicule her, and then at the same time they disassociate with that idea. Okay. Okay. Biden condemns ruling against race-conscious admissions. This is not a normal court. I mean, it's the executive branch trying to integrity and the legitimacy of another court. If Trump had said, on the left would be freaking out about it, but because it's the good thing, and he's right. And I mean, this picture, Jesus, man, he's got Teddy Roosevelt behind him, who I'm a fan of, but he did some weird stuff. And it's just like a first galactic empire. Ugh. Joe Biden condemned the Supreme Court's conservative justices for their decision released today against race-based admissions. In case after case, including recently, just a few years ago in 2016, the court has affirmed and reaffirmed this view that colleges could use race not as a determining factor admissions, but as one of the factors among many in deciding who to admit, the president said, adding that the court once again walked away from a precedent. This court has effectively ended affirmative action in college admission. I strongly disagree with that court's admission. Of course he does, because he's one of these elite people who benefits from legacy admissions. He is a member of the executive branch. He was a senator before that. He is as a and his executive branch is full of people from these universities. And these are people who are largely disproportionately from the upper class. Yeah, I mean, and it's against, it's racial. Get through the specifics of it. I'm not going into the specifics. I do the big picture stuff. That's what I do. That's what you hear more. It's what you're here to hear. But yeah. So Harvard responding to Supreme Court's affirmative action decision. No part of makes us who we are could ever be irrelevant. I mean, it's performative. It's all performative. Wokeness is the religion and the ideology of the upper class, because it's used and wielded as a weapon to Cleveland. Wokeness, the ideology and the religion of the upper class, because it to stop any sort of class-based discrimination claims, and it effectively, in practice, is used in many different cases, this being one of them, to retain the authority of a income ruling class. And that's what this is. So let's see this yet. So we'll see what they say. Dear members of the Harvard community, today the Supreme Court delivered its decision in Students for Fair versus President and Fellows of Harvard College. Okay, so it was against them. That Harvard colleges, and let's remember what the stats of Harvard is again. Stats, demographics, New York Times, whatever. Wow. Yeah, remember this is a university with a median family income of 100, where 67%, fully 2/3 of their student population, comes from the richest 20%, 1/5 of Americans. So just remember that while I'm reading this. Actually, I should be doing this much haughtier. Like, okay. The court held that Harvard's college admissions, I hate that. The court held that Harvard's system does not comply with the principles of the equal protection embodied in Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. The court held that colleges and universities may consider in admissions decisions an applicant's discussion of how race affected his or her life, be it through discrimination, inspiration, or otherwise. We will certainly comply with the court's decision. Of course you will. We write today to reaffirm the fundamental principle that deep and transformative teaching and research depend upon a community comprising people of many backgrounds, lived experiences. That principle is as true and important as it was yesterday. So too are the abiding values that have enabled us in every great educational institution to pursue the of educating creative thinkers and bold leaders, deepening human knowledge, and of promoting progress, justice, and human flourishing. God, I assume they didn't write it like that, but like, I mean, this is the most pompous nonsense I've ever heard in my life. We affirm that because the teaching, learning, research, and creativity that bring progress and change require debate and disagreement, diversity and difference are essential to academic excellence. Okay, but you like are attacking free speech right now, but whatever. To prepare leaders for a complex world, Harvard must admit and educate a student body whose members reflect and have lived multiple facets of human experience. No part of what makes us who we are relevant. Oh my God, dude, shut up. That is I hate this. Okay. Harvard must always be a place of opportunity, a place whose doors remain open to those whom they had long been closed. Except the poors. We still keep those out, as we always have and always added that part in. A place where many will have the chance to live dreams their parents or grandparents could not have dreamed. I have a dream. Bringing back the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. Ugh. Harvard has vigorously defended an admissions system that, as two federal courts ruled, fully complied with long-standing precedent, done through legislation by decision in courts, which is not how it's supposed to work. The legislative branch is supposed to legislate. They're all getting in each other's shit. In the weeks and months ahead, drawing on the talent and expertise of our Harvard community, we will determine how to preserve, consistent with the court's new precedent, our essential values. So what they're saying is, like, they're just going to figure out how to go around the court. And flat out saying they don't respect the court's decision. And it's explicitly because they're conservative, or maybe implicitly. But, like, they just don't care. They're going to do it anyway. Because they can, because they're... And the elite are the ones that graduate from there, and they will let Harvard do whatever it wants. The heart of our extraordinary institution is its people. It's people that, remember, are the vast majority, just 1/5 of American population. And, by the way, more than half, 53%, are from the top 10%. So it's even worse than I was saying, because it's only 14%. So 14% of the population comes from that, slightly disproportionately more, but the vast majority is from the richest 10% of Americans. And the median is 168,800. 5% from the bottom 20, which could be called actually being 4. 1 in 20, less than. But these are the types of people who are out here saying this stuff. Because they don't care about poor whites. They don't care about real diversity. They never have it. They care about the appearance of diversity that matches in with a way where an ideology has been created that views that as righting these perceived wrongs. And yes, okay, black people in America, African Americans from slaves, have been heavily discriminated against in the past, during and after slavery. But you're not fixing it. You're bringing in a bunch of children of disproportionately elite African and Caribbean black people who just look like the same as the African American population, but you're not righting historical wrongs even. You're not even doing what you're pretending to be doing. You're just making it so that it appears to everybody based on the ideology that your own university produces, and universities like it produce, on critical race theory and critical theory in general. And then you're taking that and you're deciding that is the law of the land. And you know what? Even the Supreme Court, because they're saying in this whole thing, Harvard themselves is telling you with this. And they're telling you that they're going to make sure that they keep getting these people in, which is fine. I think it's fine. Like, where 15% of the population is black, they shouldn't be 1% of the most elite colleges. They don't need to be 15%, though, okay? You can break people down by a bunch of different ways. Certain people are better at certain things. If diversity is our strength, then why are we not allowing the people better at certain things to do those things they're better at? Like, Asians are better at this shit for whatever reason. Genetic, cultural, I don't know. They're better at it. Asians are really good at test taking and getting good grades. Cultural backing for that in the Confucian principles of China and South Korea as well, and of Japan to a lesser extent, but still not Confucian much as Korea and China, but they still have a bureaucratic thing where is pushed culturally. And they're not, in Asians as a population, if you look at them as a whole, individuals are individuals, but if you look at them as a whole, Asian Americans even, they might be less good at certain other things. In general, I would say they're less personable if you're judging from an American perspective. That's not always the case, but judged from an American way of thinking about it, then yes, they're less personable. But that's why we should let them do the jobs that they're better at, okay? We live in a culture with a diverse population. Allow to do the things that they're good at, okay? Cornerbacks in the NFL. We don't need that. We don't have diversity higher in hockey. It's hockey. It's fine. The NFL is mostly black. The NBA is almost entirely black, but they got a bunch of fake whites coming over from Europe, taking over, which is crazy, whatever. But, like, look, hockey doesn't have to have black people in it to be good. And the NBA doesn't need to get a bunch of Asians to be good. It's fine. Jesus. Question. The only person who ever said anything this time was Kenny. Thanks, Kenny. I think Higgy's gone, but I'm gonna get off here in a moment. I'm gonna upload this tomorrow. But yeah, dude. I mean, come on. And again, they're just freaking out there doing it because they want to because they want to protect. I mean, that's the freaking thing. God. Okay, Adam Nutter's live right now on Break This. I'm gonna hop off here. Okay, I'll see you guys next week, 8 p.m.